I'm going to ask the members of the panel, please, to join us in this here, please. So the first panel will talk about the intergenerational communication breakdown here in the Somali community. And the first presenter will be Mohamed Farah. Mohamed Farah is a financial aid counselor and a professor. In his spare time, he is an independent analyst, a lecturer, and a writer. Before I introduce Mohamed Farah, I just want to tell them the panel members that you have 10 minutes for everyone, and then we'll go from there to take a question from the audience and also the people that are viewing online. All right? With due respect, please welcome Mohamed Farah to the podium.
Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum. Intergenerational breakdown. That's a huge topic. For 10 minutes, I don't know about that. What in Somali? Can I speak Somali or English? English only or Somali? Non-speaking? All right, English. Let's do English then. First, I wanted to welcome all the people that came from other states. Welcome to Boston. The land of what? Harvard, MIT, the first library in the United States, Boston Public Library. Welcome. I hope you go out there and see what's out there. Welcome to Boston once again. Intergenerational breakdown. Let's see. First, I don't know if you can be a professor if you teach a class. I teach classes. So I don't know if I can claim that title. But I do teach classes at the university. I just want to make that correction. Intergenerational breakdown, what does that mean? This is how I see it. From 1990 until today, those who are, let's say my age, we have contributed what? We've contributed very little. Why? Because we're followers, we're not leaders. We follow others. We haven't defined what we can contribute, what legacy, what should we do, how do we define ourselves? Those questions haven't been answered, has it? There's a lot of educated young people who are incredibly confused. Do you know why you're confused? Because the older generation failed us, right? Let's be honest. They built Somalia, they destroyed Somalia, we're still following them. Every time they put a new shirt, they put the flag up, what happens? You follow. Don't be a follower. You need to come up with your own agenda, come up with your own program. There's one thing we need. Forget about the clan thing. Oh, Somalia destroyed by a clan. What is a clan? People, right? Right? So don't play that game. That clan game doesn't work for me. Why? Because we know every girl, when she's about to get married, what is she going to do? What are you going to do? Mama, I'm getting married. Mama's going to say, what is he? What clan is he? Are you going to say, I don't care about the clan, I'm in love with him? No, you're not going to do that. You'll be like, Mama, I'm no longer in love with him because you don't like his clan. Right? The same thing, guys will do exactly the same thing. The day that someone dies, what happens? You will do exactly the same. Somalis come together when someone dies. Somalis come together when there's a wedding. Right? Somalis come together when there's war back home. What are we doing? Oh, this such and such clan is getting, there's war. We need $10 support. What do? You do it. Because you're part of the culture, right? But let me just challenge you. I just need to know what is your legacy. That's all I want to know. This generation, there's only one legacy. If you want the history to write you, do one thing. We need peace, nothing else for now. Peace. Don't beat around the bush. Do not beat around the bush. Start with yourself. How do you do it? You need to have an internal peace. What is an internal peace? If someone is at peace with himself or herself, what happens? Then you can be in peace with your neighbor. You can be in peace with your friends. You can be in peace in the community. You can be in peace in the region, in the community, whatever it is. You understand that? So do not put yourself in a trap. Somalia has made progress. It has also made some destructive. It is not doing bad. You can play the same song that they play, but you come up with your own song. Somalia has made a lot of progress. And I'll tell you why. In Somalia, in 1990, there was only 3 universities. Right now, there's 13 universities. In Somalia, in 1990, Somalia had a decentralized government. Centralized government. Mogadishu was the only place the Somalis invested. Fast forward to 2011. What's happening in Somalia? Decentralized system. What happens? If something is not growing, what happens? If the relationship is not growing, what happens? Relationship dies, right? If you're not adding value to a company, to your life, what happens? You die. That's how the world works. Somalia has made progress. There was only one place that's really, really in pain, and all of us is affected by us. So what's happening in Mogadishu for the last 20 years, it affects us. Why? Because we're all of us. That place is part of us. It's the capital city. It's the heart of Somalia. You understand that? So don't play the game. Half of Somalia is peace. There is peace in Puntland. There is peace in Somaliland. They made progress. So what you do? You got to make sure you're strategic. Intergenerational breakdown, what is your legacy? One thing. Look at where is peace? There's peace there. How do they make that peace? How do they attain that peace? Who helped them? Ask those questions. Don't be a fool. I want to see Somalia at peace so I can live my life. I don't want people to ask me, "You're from Somalia?" Oh, tell us something about piracy. This is what they ask me, and I hate that. I really hate that question. I don't want people to ask me a question. So my contribution is to be honest, to tell young people, what is wrong with you? Where is your legacy? What do you want to leave behind? If you died right now, what will history say about you? Just ask that question. I want history to say me that, hey, this guy was a good guy. He did a couple things. He helped somebody. He wanted peace. You understand that? If someone builds a school, I don't care where they build it, I support them. If someone, forget about the whole country, if someone takes care of his family, his own wife and children, I support them. I don't care what clan you are. We need one thing, one more time. Generational breakdown. There is a generational breakdown because the current generation is confused. We are confused. And there's nothing wrong with that because you know why? We fought one another. There's a lot of war. There's a lot of death. It is natural to have some kind of distrust when some conflict takes place, right? Somalis come together and they say, oh, who's that? That guy that I met today. Does anybody know what tribe he was? That is natural. Because you know why? Because of the war. Don't take that as a threat. Don't take that. All you have to do is, hey, I am such and such. I love you. I want you to succeed. We want to make sure we leave a legacy, especially our generation. Why our generation? Because we speak both languages, right? I speak Somalian. I've seen the conflict. I speak American, English language, both. But the ones who are born in this country, my brothers and sisters who speak only one language, don't have that. They cannot relate to Somali. They cannot relate to what the guy was saying. That was such a boring thing, right? I mean, really. Because it was not engaging. It did not talk to you. It did not talk to your passion, the inner passion. I'm not talking about the outer passion. Inner passion. It didn't talk to you. So what happens? You need to get something that talks to your inner passion. Whatever you study, add value to yourself. If it's not adding value to yourself, change your course. Add value to yourself, add value to your community, add value to, and be honest. And do a lot of stuff out of passion. Don't do it out of money. Because that's how they mess up Somalia, right? Give me some money so I can destroy some piece of land. That's exactly what happened. Don't do it out of that. That was such a long, I'm sorry if I took it too long. I'm sorry if I was a little bit loud, but I am so proud that some of you are educated, some of you are trying to educate it. I see some people that I know of. Good job. Welcome to Boston. Somali Diaspora Youth. Welcome to Boston. I hope you do good things. The fact that you got us students together is a victory. The fact that I know there's not a lot of people here, and you can always look back and say, hey, how do we engage to more people? You can ask those questions, but at least you're trying and you're doing a good job. Continue and make sure you impact. The future belongs to who? The future belongs to the young, not the old. The old is gone. All right, that's a old thinking. The new thinking is we do not compete ourselves in terms of a destructive way. We cooperate. We challenge each other. We want to make sure there's one thing in Somalia, one thing alone, nothing else. Peace. All right? 20 years. Assalamu alaikum.
I'm telling you guys, this guy gets you fired up. Thanks to Mohamed Farah for that enlightenment. The next panelist is Hashim Siraj. He is a student at University of Massachusetts in Boston, and the co-founder of United Somali Youth, based on here in Boston. Siraj, welcome, please.
Assalamu alaikum, guys. First of all, I want to thank all of you guys for putting together this wonderful Somali Diaspora Youth event. I've been watching it last couple of years in Virginia and on YouTube, like a lot of us. We learn Somali history on YouTube, like a lot of us. So it's not something new to us, the new generation. But I'm going to start real quick. First of all, thank you, Brother Mohammed. You touched a lot of the stuff I wanted to say, so I'm going to skip over all of that. So Somalia is in our hearts, right? Am I right or am I wrong? Am I right or am I wrong? So Somalia is in our hearts like a drum beating loudly, or is this that my nervousness? Let's not ask questions such as, why are these catastrophes happening? Who is supplying the guns? Who is doing the killing? But rather, let's give us solutions. I want to stop the weapons. I want to stop the hunger. I want to stop the drought. I want to set up schools. This is something that we want from the future, the youth, and also the current generation. What does making a difference mean? Many think about it. Some talk about it. A few do something about it. Making a difference means improving the society. Also, a society is judged by how it takes care of its poorest. So can we do something for our society? That's the question right there. And I want to get into the intergenerational communication gap. You guys see the last youth uprisings, the revolutions that's happening in Egypt, the revolutions that's happening in Tunisia. How come we can't have those kind of revolutions as a youth? Why do we let our adults who are not doing something useful for us take care of all of this? Where are we? Why are we missing? We don't have to ask any longer. We have to demand it. What's our risk? Our identity? Our language? Look, a lot of us speak English as a first language now. So we can't really put the blame on our parents, because a lot of them, they come in from civil war, they come in from destruction, they're coming in from a lot of different levels of, just catastrophes. A lot of them has mental, psychological issues that they haven't really talked about. A lot of us, they're really not there yet. So we can't really put a blame on them right now. But at the same time, let's not forget about the biggest atrocity that's happening right now. It's not what's the rest of the world doing for our country, for Somalia. It's what we're doing for Somalia itself. Do your part. It's not about what you do that counts, but what your intent is. How much of an effort you can give. This is 20 years without a government, they say. But we're not talking about 20 years without a government, because a lot of us, we were young. We were used to it. It's not about yesterday, but it's about today. Children born then are now adults in their own rights, yet treated as if they're children. Mentally, even though they don't look physically, youth need a voice, or else they will tread into the blind road, not knowing the difference about what is good and what is good for later on. They take up arms because that's all they know, that's all they've been supplied. They're basically products of their own environment. It's survival of the fittest, leaving the community prone to death and destruction. Men, women, children who just want to live peacefully. I do personally believe that all these talks we have, all these conferences that we have, we can make action out of it. So how can we make that action? Brothers like Mohamed, sisters like Huda, let's put an action together. In the attendance right now. Real quick, let's look at everybody in attendance right now. We have students. We have activists. We have professional athletes. We have community leaders. We have future leaders in attendance. You know, all of these people will not have been in the place they are if it's not for education. So education is the passport to the future, right? So my brothers and sisters, the least you can do is make a dua. Pray for our brothers and sisters in Somalia, living in Somali Kenya, living in Somali Ethiopia. Make a pledge if you can. Raise money. Let's talk about it, and let's take action as a next step. Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you, Hashim. I just want to let you guys know that Hashim, again, he's involved in the youth community here in Boston, and he's very involved. We need individuals like him that can take initiative and don't rely on NGOs or other community members to take and solve our problems. I really appreciate it. Thank you. The next panelist is Huda Yusuf. Huda is a friend of mine, an executive director and one of the founding members of African Right Monitors. Huda currently holds position as the chairwoman for Armed Board of Directors. Huda holds bachelor in chemistry with honors from the University of Ottawa, and a master's in chemistry with focus on nanoparticles and polymers from the University of Victoria in Canada. Huda is a recipient of several awards, but not limited to she has an award on the Surrealism Youth Citizenship Award and the Von Rudolph Award. I want to welcome my friend Huda Yusuf.
I feel so embarrassed whenever I get introduced. Intergenerational breakdown. I think since our brothers talked a lot about what's happening in Somalia and happening to our youth, I want to kind of go back a little bit to the basics, because that's the critical point of it, but I'm not going to drone on it, because since they've talked about it. But the number one thing I think the youth needs to understand is, if you do not speak the language of the older generation, you're not going to be able to communicate with the older generation. The Somali history is very oral. As a young child, I remember sitting around the living room and my father telling us stories about back home and telling us, but it was all oral. And whenever I asked him, is this written? He would say, no, it's been passed down from generation to generation through poetry, orally, and stories. A lot of wisdom has been passed down orally. A lot of wisdom has been passed down having dinners after Ramadan and people just chatting and having a chat with your grandparents, your grandmother just sitting at the table and she's telling you about what she went through, how she traveled, the wisdom and all that stuff. But if we do not speak the Somali language, if we do not learn it and write it, is it going to die in this generation once the older generation dies? So how can we communicate and learn from the older generation if we do not speak the Somali generation? You're going to learn English or Spanish or French or Dutch or any other language that we've been a refugee to. A lot of us are asylum seekers in a lot of countries in the world due to the factors that are happening in Somalia. But does that mean that we can only learn the one language, which is the language that's going to be in school, which is the language that's going to be on TV, which is the language that's going to be in all, like the books that we read? No, we need to learn the Somali language. So one of the main things is to communicate with them in that language and to learn from them and to be able to write that language and to somebody to sit down and write those stories and actually teach it to your children. You know, do you only want to be speaking English to your children? No, you want to speak the language that your parents have taught you. So that's very critical. Then the other thing is to understand the intergenerational communication breakdown is how to speak to the elders. You have to speak with them with respect. You have to come at them with respect. You have to always respect their wisdom and their age and learn from them as well. They have a lot to teach us, and there's a lot we can learn from them, but at the same time, it doesn't mean that your visions and your views are not important. A lot of the things that are happening in the revolutions that they were talking about in Egypt is that if you noticed, everybody was speaking their mother tongue. Everybody was speaking in Arabic. And then when they were talking to the media, if they didn't speak Arabic, there was a friend of theirs that spoke English that can translate for them, or the newspaper people came and brought the translators with them. But they spoke their mother tongue. They spoke in Arabic. But then what did they do once they got what they wanted? Does everybody remember the day that he resigned? What did the kids that were in the square, what did they do? Do you guys remember? It was all over CNN and the news. They cleaned up. They painted. They picked up. They made sure that the artifacts in their museums were not stolen. The history of their land was not stolen. What good is it for them if the history of Egypt is in the black market? It's not good to them. It's not going to help them. If it's in the black market, it's going to be in somebody's rich house saying, I got this. This is 6,000 years old. But if an Egyptian young person, as young as you guys, can see it in their museum and feel proud that it is from their country and it stayed in their country after there was a revolution, they were protecting their museums. They were protecting their streets. There was nobody allowed to make a mess. There was nobody allowed to break down a wall, a window. Nobody was allowed to steal from another person. They were protecting. They were taking shifts in who was sleeping and who wasn't, to protect the girls that were in the revolution, to protect the young as 15 that were in the revolution. The professionals after Dhuhr were praying, and you know who was protecting them? There's a beautiful picture online, and you guys can YouTube unite. As the Muslims were praying, do you know who was making a wall barrier around them? The Christians, because they're all Egyptian. Think about that. They're all Egyptian. Nationality was important. Their land was important. The young and the old were standing together, speaking one language, wanting one thing, protecting their land, protecting their streets. Everybody was picking up. You could see kids as young as 5 picking up the street the day Hosni Mubarak resigned, and painting and cleaning. If that's not nationalism, I don't know what is. If that's not intercommunication between the elders and the young, I don't know what is. If they didn't speak the same language, a 9-year-old might not learn English, but he knows how to speak Arabic. So a 15-year-old had to better speak Arabic to learn from the 9-year-old, right? So I'm not going to drone on, but if there's one thing I want to pass on to you guys today about this communication barrier is do your best. The same way you're learning Spanish in class, you can learn Somali. Learn how to write it, learn how to speak it, learn how to read it. Then nobody can, everybody else is learning your language. You might as well you learn it, right? They're learning your language to make sure that they can get into your head to understand how Somali people speak, how Somali people think. So learn your language, be nationalistic, help each other, and that's the only way that nobody's going to break you guys apart as the youth. So there you go. Thank you.
Thank you, Huda, for that enlightenment again. So again, we're going to take some questions from the people here, and also the people that are watching us at home and online. Please, we're going to limit the questions to, let's say, 6 questions from here and 6 questions from online. You have about 3 minutes to answer your questions. Thank you. We have a question? Questions, comments, anything? All right. Please state your name and where you came from first.
My name is Shadia. I'm from Portland, Maine. And my question, actually, can I have 3 questions? Wine?
You can combine it to one. Thank you.
Okay. Let me try that. Okay. First is for Huda. You talk about learning languages, and that's great. But there has to be, this is like a comment, there has to be someone, an elderly, who's willing to teach the young about their culture and their language, because obviously there are many people who grow up as an American, and they're not aware of their culture because their comfort zone is being an American. And if there's no teachings in schools or there's no teachings in community, like how can a youth take the stand, take the action to learn their culture if there is no way, nowhere to go to learn it? Like how do you try to learn it if you don't know how?
All right, thank you, Shadia. The question is, we need the older people to teach the younger generation how to speak the language. What are you going to say about that, Huda?
When you want to learn a language, let's say you wanted to learn Spanish, what do? You can Google and find it. So if you wanted to learn Somali, who's at the home with you? Your parents, right? Sometimes your parents want to spend time with you, right? They want to spend, they might be busy, but honestly, I think that if you really want something, and I'm not saying that you don't want it, but if you really, really want it and you put the energy and you can seek it, you will find someone to teach it to you. You honestly will find someone to teach it to you. And if you cannot find someone to teach it to you, I will give you my email at the end of this, and we'll help you find someone in Maine that can teach you how to read English and speak Somali. Because I bet you anything, there's an elder man or woman who is bored out of her mind that would not love more than to teach children how to read and speak Somali. But you have to be willing to kind of go out of your comfort and say, Mom, Dad, I'm trying to learn Somali. Is there anybody in the neighborhood that, or can you teach me? And the same way, all you need is 15, 20 minutes a day. They'll teach you how to kind of put the words together. You can go and actually YouTube it. There's some things that you can find in YouTube. It's phonetic, which is so much easier than English. It's phonetic, so you can actually learn it. So seek it. I honestly think if you speak to your circle and you reach out to the community leaders in Maine, and if there are none in Maine, there are definitely some in Boston, and I can put you in touch with some of them. They will help you find someone that can teach it to you. And that happens to everybody. Like, just seek the leaders in your community, and you will definitely find evening classes or at home or school or something. So just be resourceful. You're young. Then you can be the teacher. If you can read it, speak it in English, come on, you can be the teacher. Yeah, in general, but in general, there is someone that will be able to help you. And if there isn't, you can always, we have to be resourceful. And then what we can do is someone like you can work with someone who doesn't know how to speak it, and then you guys can put a class together and then put it on YouTube. Do a 20-minute instructor and just put it out there. And then you can say how to read, speak English Somali, and people will YouTube it, and then that will be edger for you, and then people will learn it. And then you can be the teacher, and you can actually start a blog, and you can actually do that, and you can start a blog, and people will follow you, and people can have questions for you. So if you know how to do all 3, then actually I think you should start one.
Thank you, Huda. So everyone here, Huda has just offered, if you don't know how to speak Somali, she'll be more than happy to help you find somebody to where location you are. All right, anybody else have a question, comment?
My name is Mahdi Ali. I'm from Boston, Massachusetts. Welcome. The people come from different states, United States, even including Canada. We appreciate that. I feel sorry if your mom and dad are from Somalia and they speak Somali in your apartment and you don't know Somali. That's a shame. That's a shame on you. I am a dad. My wife is Somalian. My kid is born and raised in Boston. They speak and write Somali language. That's an asset. If your mom and dad, they are the people who took away from Africa to bring in this country a better future, not to lose in this country. Look, the Irish people, they got oppressive from British colonial power between a century. They lost their language, Irish language, no more. So you have to watch out the way you are losing your identity, your culture and language. You are bilingual. Suppose tomorrow you'll be a professional, a doctor, like our brother Warfa. He used to teach and is still teaching. I think in 3rd year is in teaching. He's asset. You can ask the community a free classes. He can teach you Somali language freely. Even I could participate. So you, young generation, you are asset for us. Tomorrow I'll be an old man. You will be young man who can help me tomorrow when I grow up. So thank you.
Thank you to the brother. He just tell you that for you to speak a Somali language is an asset to you and to your community. All right? So don't forget about that. He'll be more than happy to volunteer also and have the brother Warfar, help you out, hopefully to speak the Somali language. All right, any other comments, questions?
Okay, my name is Shamsa. I'm from Boston. In order for the kids to learn Somali, I think it starts at home. Both parents have to be willing to teach the kids their language. If the parents cannot teach the kids their language, the kids are spending most of their time watching TV and going to school. So they're going to speak the language they hear the most. So I think that's where it starts.
All right, thank you, sister. The sister just told us that don't watch the TV, all right? Because you're not going to learn the Somali language. So use your time perfectly to at least learn other languages, especially Somali language, in your community, all right?
My name is Firdosa, and I'm from Boston. And I have a suggestion for like people who don't speak Somali. When I was younger, my father used to be like, "Oh, leave your English outside, and when you come in the house, start speaking Somali." Like, even if you're having a conversation about watching TV or anything, like, at least speak Somali, attempt to speak Somali. And if you don't get it right, then your parents can help you out and help you learn.
All right, thank you. The sister just told us that you're not coming to the house unless you speak Somali language. All right, so please learn the language of your homeland.
Assalamu alaikum. And magacaygu waa Idris. Maadaama luqadda af Soomaaliga ka hadlaysa, waxaan jeclaan inaan af Soomaali ku hadlo. Okay. And runtii luqadda af Soomaaligu waa luqad aad u da'weyn. Dadkeeduna uu imika sii fara badanayo, waxaana fiican inaan ku baraarugno qiimaha ay leedahay. Taasi waa meel dhalinyaro ahaan haddaan ka hadlo inaan luqadda baranno. Aad bay u fududahay. Waqtigan aan joogno waxaan haysanaa internet, waxaan haysanaa dad fara badan oo imika soo kacaya oo af Soomaaliga yaqaana, dad fara badan baa ka soo baxaya wadamadii oo imika halkan imanaya, waan ka faa'iideysan karnaa. Marka haddii aanu wada xidhiidhno oo wada kulanno oo wada fadhiisano, runtii luuqadeena waan kobcin karnaa. Aniga gaar ahaan in yar baan idiin sheegayaa aniga igu saabsan. 5 sano ku dhawaad ka hor ayaan wadankan imid. 1 sano markaan joogay waxaan dareemay inaan luuqadii qoraalkeeda si fiican aan u qori karin af Soomaaliga. Waxaan kaloo dareemay inaan luuqadii si fiican uga hadli karin oo ereyo fara badan oo af Soomaaliya ay markiiba iga lumayaan. Midda labaad waxaan dareemay Soomaalidu inay fara badan tahay, gobollo fara badan ku kala nooshahay, isla markaana ay luuqado iyo lahjado kala fara badan ku kala hadlaan. Marka waxaan dareemay in af Soomaaligu aad u ballaaran yahay. Marka waxaan bilaabay inaan barto aniga laftigaygii. Waxaan ahaa waan ku hadli karay, ima dhibayn, haddana waxaan isku dayay inaan barto. Marka meeshaan ka bilaabay waxay ahayd blog yar baan furay, gabayadaan jecelahay, gabayadii baan kusoo gurguray, qiimeyn yar baan ku samayn jiray oo dadkaan u soo bandhigi jiray. Ilaahay amarkii imika wixii way isbiirisay, way kobcday. Imika dhinaca waxaan u gudbay inaan research ku sameeyo maansada Soomaaliyeed, poetry-ga inaan research ku sameeyo, oon kasoo saaro qoraallo fara badan. Marka haddii aad adigu dadaasho meel walba waad gaadhaysaa. Waa 5 sano ku dhawaad waqtigan aan imika aaminsanahay researchigayga weliba qayb fara badan oo macallimiinta professorada Soomaaliyeed aynan gaadhin inaan gaadhay. Sababtoo ah shay markii aad ku dadaasho oo aad jeceshahay inaad barato, dabcan way fududahay. Hana ka warwarina, isku daya, had iyo jeer barta, insha Allah waad baranaysaan luqadda Soomaalida.
Thank you very much, brother. Brother is encouraging us to learn the Somali language. I'm going to have Dr. Warfa talk a little bit.
waxaa la yidhi ninkani uu isa shareeray Idris. Marka waxaan doonayaa inaan shaaciyo af Soomaaliga waxa weyn waa authority. Marka aan wax isku hagaajiyay isaga iga saxa. Waxa laga yaabaa inuu iga yiraahdo 20 sano iga yiraahdo. Haddana laakiin siduu isku taxallujiyay qof isku taxallujiyay ma jirto. Mid baan ii sheegay laakiinse maad iska sheegtid inaad u furtay aroorta iskuul Soomaaliga lagu barto oona lacagna ka qaadanay bilaash tahay. Maxaad ugu sheegi weyday? Imika wiiga oo dhan from Isniinta ilaa Jimcaha wuxuu dhigaa hanigan buu wuxuu ka dhigaa carruurta Soomaalida ugu dhigaa af Soomaaliga. 46 arday baa ku jira samarkan wuxuuna ku sameeyaa volunteer.
All right, please, we're going to keep these questions to 3 minimum so far, all right?
My name is Hirsi Hassan, and I'm a member of the United Somali Youth, and I have a quick question for Brother Mohamed Farah. As a youth, I know that in America, there's Somalis are together, you know, there's no division. But the question I want to ask is, Somalia within itself, there's division among Somalis over there, you know? So I think that, because that sister was talking about how Egypt, they came together, you know, at that country. But I think that one thing that we Somalis need to stress is that within Somalia, there's a division and we all know what it is. So I think that it's better that we Somalians encourage that the Somalis that live in Somalia to come as a unity, you know? Thank you.
All right, thank you, brother. The brother's question is, we are so divided here in the United States. How can we come together and as one community?
How do we come together as one community? That was the question? Okay. I know the example was made about Egypt, right? How old is Egypt? One of the oldest, right? The cradle of civilization. The pyramids came from there. So we really can. I'm not saying anything bad. It's a good example. It's a remarkably good example. It shows the unity. We are divided over what? Clan? I mean, it's almost like laughable when you see the Somali conflict because we speak one language, one religion, you know, all these things. What divides us is the trust. We don't trust each other because what happened. But when we compare ourselves to Egypt, Egypt is remarkably an old country. You know, they are very civilized there. We can learn what they do best, but we must go back to the basics. We must study the culture, the language in a very organic way. You know what I mean? Organic way. Deep studying. And the best thing to do is, my brother, he's a poet. I incredibly love that guy. I mean, I listen to him, you know, Gupta, all this stuff. I'm also the student of the language. I'm trying to study Somali language because I got educated in this country. I went to school very little in Somalia. So for those who speak very little of Somali, or those who write very little, those who, whenever you try to read, you got a headache, and you're like, oh, man, I don't want to read this again. I am one of you. But the thing is this, passion differentiates you and the person who masters whatever they're after, right? If you're in love, let me give you an example. That's a very, very easy example, right? Everybody gets in love. Some of you haven't, some of you will, right? If you're in love, you don't want to leave that person, right? You spend about 8 hours, 9 hours, you don't want to leave it, right? Well, let me tell you something. If you're in love with the language, you will master it. You'll spend a lot of time into it. And if you want to help your community, you must study the basics. The language will educate you. It will tell you what the culture is all about. It'll tell you the weaknesses, the strength, what do we do, you know, all that stuff. So try to study the language. I really emphasize that. And you can do it because today is Googleable. Thank you.
Thank you, Mohamed Farah. We have 2 more questions, one for Saeed and the other for that brother right there.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Saeed Hassan Ahmed. First, a few things like comments. First of all, Somalia and Egypt is a bad comparison. You know, we can't compare Somalia to Egypt. Maybe Somalia to South Sudan or, you know, maybe Djibouti or something, you know what I mean? But bad comparison. Because like Egyptians actually are very well educated people. They have been existed, like Mohammed said, long time before, you know, any other country in the world existed. Like in fact, Egyptians, they use, Egypt is the mother of the world, you know what I mean? So that's that. And then they don't have tribes. You know, actually, I lived in Egypt. So when Egyptians identified each other, they say, where you from? I'm from Alexandria. Where you from? I'm from Cairo. Where you from? I'm from Bunt Said. You know, they use cities. Like imagine if I was saying, where are you from? I'm from Galansor. Where are you from? I'm from Mogadishu. Where are you from? I'm from Hargeisa. That would be different than, what tribe are you? You know what I mean? You know, who's your mom? And another thing is like Somalis, we have tribes, we're not educated. You know, especially youth, I want to tell you this. We're nomads. Number one, we're nomads, we're behind. And Obama, if you guys seen him when he was talking to Somali girl last year or year before, he said Somali and Kenya and those, you know, countries that are reached to the 50 years of independence, they 50 years behind. 50 years behind than the rest of the world. Another thing also I want to tell you is, which I'm not doing here myself, is about Somali. You know, you got to preach what you got to practice what you preach, you know. We got to speak Somali. If we want to learn Somali, we got to speak Somali, this kind of places. You know, everybody here, it's Somali. But we speaking what? Thank you. So at the same time, we got to practice what we preach. So this is my comments. It's not a questions. And this is what I want to contribute to this.
Thank you, Brother Saeed. I'm going to take one more question. Actually, 2 more questions. Can you make it quicker, please, brother?
Assalamu alaikum. First of all, waxaan rabaa inaan soo dhaweeyo dadka nooga imaaday gobolada kale iyo wadamada kale haday jiraanba. Aad u mahadsantiin. Xoogaa microphone waa lagu soo dhawaad dadka waa laga fogaanayo laakiin I'm gonna try inaan soo koobo. Horta first of all waxa weeye dadkiinan dhalinyarada dhahaysa in Soomaaliga la baraan rabnaa. One thing aan u fiirsaday waxa weeye dhalinyaro badan waxa arkay Soomaaliga way yaqaanaan way fahmaan. Imisa qof walba guriga ka yimaada hooyadiis aabihiis Soomaali way ku hadashaa. mar guriga joogo Soomaali uu ku hadlaa wuuna fahmaa markuu banaanka u yimaado wuu ka faanaa xogaa wuxuu leeyahay ama ceebta Soomaalida ku hadashid laakiin waxa ogaataa waxa ceeb ah adoo Soomaali sheeganaya Soomaalina ku hadlin taasaa ceeb markii banaanka la yimaado that's my comment laakiin su'aasheeda aan soo noqonay waxa weeye markaan joogno magaalooyinka ama meelaha ay Soomaalidu ku badan tahay amin su'aashan Kenya rabaa ka jawaabi karaa amna qof gaar ma u dooranayo waxaa jira dhalinyaro badan oo Soomaaliyeed sida u badan hadda example Boston oo kale example dhalinyarada drop out ka ama darbiyada taagtaagan run ahaantii aad ay noogu yar yihiin 1% waa ka yar yihiin saasoo tahay waxaa dhacda marka dadka waaweyn ama community-da timaadid inay si aad u taageeraan oo badanaa ay afka ku hayaan halkii midoo dariiqa taagnaa oo dhumay si lagu soo celinayaan ani ma garanayo the only hope aan hayo waa in aan xabsigiisa lagu ilaawo ama laga quusto because ma soo celin karo qof daraag bartay oo asagu naftiisaba god iska tuuray marka aniga waxaan taagnahay see macnaha aan moor xoog u saarnaa dhalinyarada dadaalaysa oo iskuulada ku jirta oo waqtigooda iskuul iyo nafta oo bahalkii u dadaalaya see ayaga xoog loo saaraa sidii loogu caawin lahaa oo loo garab gali lahaa inay more successful noqdaan in still qof dhumay energy iyo dhan la gelin lahaa oo sometimes sida dhacdana arday asaguba dhibanaa oo tuitionkiisa iyo buuggiisa gadan waayay inta loo yimaado la dhahayo qaaraankeen oo ardaygii waxaasi saakiida banaanka taagnaa marka that's my theory comment taasna waa kuweesha ka Kenya rabaa ka jawaab ama santaas
Thank you. I hope the panels got the questions right. This is actually the last question. Sorry if I told you that I was going to give you the mic. I apologize. Respecting the time, we need to just hurry up and finish this. Thank you. Whoever want to answer this question?
Bismillah. Jama. First of all, you know, there's a big difference between the Somali that just come in today or yesterday, just recently, and the difference between the Somali that was born here and the ones that come here at a small, young age. Just speaking about myself, I don't want to speak for the whole Somali youth in general. I come in here, I've started school in 2nd grade. I live in a small town, just right across the bridge right here. I didn't see any Somalis until maybe 9th grade. And my teacher was the TV. So a lot of Somali different youth, you know, they come from way different backgrounds, way different perspectives. Just like our 5 fingers, we're not all the same. We speak the same language, we have the same religion, we have the same identity, but we're not all the same. There's a whole lot of diversity between Somali youth. There's, just like our fingers, they're all different, right? None of them the same. But we all one though at the same time. So one thing we have to realize is this Somali youth that we focus on, this small percentage, you know, that's doing all the bad, we always put this, maybe like 1 to 5% maybe, we always put the focus on. But we always leave behind the youth that are doing very well. We don't really acknowledge them, we don't give them credit, we don't give them their credit where credit is due, right? So I just come from Toronto this morning, and the community of Toronto, they were there for a long time. And you can see a lot of the youth, they only speak English. None of them speak Somali. So this is what happens when you assimilate with society in America, North America, wherever, Europe, Australia, all of these youth, they're assimilating. America's a melting pot, but there's only one language. But at the same time, one thing we have to realize is we have to take what's good from it and leave what's bad from it. And all of that is up to our community leaders and our community leaders to sit down together, our parents, all the parents in the community to sit down together and really work hard on how we can try to help out our youth, how we can really try to help out the young future. If we can't do that, there's nothing else we can do. Thank you.
Can I just say a couple words? Hey, that was a very important question. You know why? Success produces success, right? If you focus on the bad apple, there's no such thing as perfection, right? Perfection, anybody who's trying to be perfect, you will never reach perfection. The word perfection belongs to God. If you want to raise a community, let's say you want to raise a community in terms of intellectual asset and educate them, all that stuff, you focus on the success. Do you hear that? If there's a 1% dropout rate, you emphasize that. Those who graduated, you reward them, so the reward keeps giving. You understand? That is how people are built. So make sure one of you, the youth in Boston, let me recognize them. They are doing remarkably fabulous. And you know what happened? They took the initiative. They took the initiative. So they're doing great. I am so happy. I'm sure everybody who's open-minded is incredibly happy. So keep going and make sure you recognize your success. You make sure you understand success produces success. You make sure you use a merit system. Those who are really good, empower them so they can produce more in the community. When you do a good job, come back to the community and recognize them. And make sure you help each other. I succeed, I pull my friend up, that person pulls their friend up, and that's how all of us, go up, inshallah ta'ala. So don't ever lose hope. There's no such thing as you cannot do it. You can do everything you can if you use your mind. Make sure you use your mind, in a very powerful way.
Thanks everyone. Hashim, Siraj, Mohamed, Farah, and Huda, Yusuf. I hope they answer your questions this afternoon. And whatever they're telling you, that is not a judgment. I'm telling you guys, go ahead, forcefully study Somali language. You don't have to study Somali language. It is your asset. It's going to be an asset to whatever else you know. If you know Spanish, great. Just add the Somali in there so you can at least communicate with the family members, community members while you are around them. All right? So we're just going to continue our program, but can you please give a hand of applause for the panel?